Welcome, everyone. I'm Adam Lawrence, president of the Los Angeles chapter for Foundation Fighting Blindness. We have a great event scheduled tonight. Deborah Erickson is going to be speaking. If we would mind, please hold all your questions until after her presentation. There'll be time for questions and answers. Also, afterwards, we have an update on what's coming up in the next couple of months, so stick around. And I'm going to hand it over to Kimmy so we can get a brief research update.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Community Connections brought to you by the Los Angeles chapter of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. My name is Kimmy Huang, and I'm the West Region Development Assistant with the Foundation. And we're excited to be with you all tonight, and I just wanted to give you some quick research updates from the Foundation. So Luxa Biotechnology's new stem cell therapy showed promising vision improvements for 6 people with advanced dry age-related macular degeneration, or AMD, in an early study. The 3 participants who started with the poorest vision improved from about 20/50 vision to around 20/80 after a year, and no serious side effects were reported. These special retinal cells taken from donated eyes and grown in a lab help support the eye's light-sensing cells. Because the results were encouraging, Luxa is now testing a higher dose of the therapy. Neurotech's Incelto, a tiny capsule placed in the eye, just received FDA approval to treat macular telangiectasia type 2, or MACTEL. In 2 late-stage studies, Incelto significantly slowed the loss of the retina's light-sensing cells over 24 months. The capsule steadily releases a protective protein, DNTF, and it's expected to be available in the US by June 2025. Adverum is gearing up for 2 large phase 3 trials of Ixo-vec, a one-time gene therapy for wet AMD. This approach aims to block harmful blood vessels in the retina without the need for regular anti-VEGF shots. In earlier studies, Ixo-vec cut these rescue injections by up to 92% and was generally safe. Adverum plans to start the phase 3 program in 2025. And finally, Mera GTX treated 11 children ages 1 to 4 with the gene therapy for Leber congenital amaurosis 4, LCA4, a severe inherited eye disease, and all showed meaningful vision gain. The therapy uses a harmless virus to deliver healthy AIPL1 genes directly to the retina, protecting its light-sensing cells. These improvements, reported in the journal Lancet, included better visual acuity and the ability to do everyday tasks. Mera GTX hopes to secure marketing approval in the UK based on these promising results. Now I'll pass it over to Shauna Casey to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Kimmy. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm excited to introduce Deborah Erickson as our speaker. Deborah is the executive chef and founder of The Blind Kitchen. I think Deborah has a remarkable story and an amazing mission, which she will speak to all of us about tonight. I want Deborah to personally share her story with everyone, but she has dedicated herself to teaching adults with vision loss, like herself, to have the confidence to prepare meals using strategies that do not depend on sight. The Blind Kitchen offers adaptive tools, helpful strategies, and specialized knowledge to blind and vision impaired people who want to cook safely and independently. Thank you for being here tonight, Deborah. I'll let you take it away from here.
Well, thank you for having me, and what a lovely introduction. I have to thank you for that. And also, gosh, the research is so exciting. The FFB does such important work. I just really admire what your efforts are. So, as she said, I am the executive chef and founder of The Blind Kitchen, and it is an online business where we sell adaptive culinary tools to people with vision loss who want to cook in their own kitchens. So I am blind myself. I have retinitis pigmentosa. I'm one of 12 kids from Indiana, and 3 of us have it with absolutely no family history. So, of blindness on either side. So, it's a recessive gene. This is why people, you don't marry your first cousins, okay? It's part of the fun. So, I was the only blind student in culinary school. I did my voc rehab at the Oregon Commission for the Blind, and then went to culinary school. And in culinary school, I learned to solve a lot of problems because I was held to the same standards as the other students, as well I should have been. No one wants to be waiting for a steak and a baked potato, and 2 hours later flag down your server and say, "Here, heck, where's my steak?" And the server says, "Well, the chef is blind. She's a little slower." Nobody wants to hear that. So I was held to the same expectations for people that want to work in a fast-paced, restaurant or other commercial kitchen industry. So I had to solve a lot of problems, and I learned a lot, and that's where the blind kitchen ended up coming from. And what I found in my work and my communications with people, which I just love, is that there are really 4 fears associated with cooking with vision loss. Of course, the first 2 are fears of burning yourself or cutting yourself. That's very real. The third fear falls into fear of embarrassment, and that can come into 2 categories. One is being afraid that you'll be seen as a clumsy, disorganized, messy cook, and that is a real fear. And then the other fear of embarrassment is that, here, I'm going to serve you a plate of food that I just cooked. I can't see it, but you can. I'm afraid it might not look right. And I'm here, and then the fourth fear is that you will make your friends and family sick because you cooked the food wrong, or like undercook chicken. That definitely can make people sick, or turkey. But I'm here to tell you there are ways to be able to address each of these fears with confidence. Now, we can't do everything. I can't do everything. I cannot devein a shrimp. There just is not enough tactile information in that. But a strategy around that is buying shrimp that's already deveined. I mean, it's really not that tough. But other things like burning yourself, I can't buy not burning myself. I have got to have tools and strategies to avoid doing that. So let's start with the fear of cutting yourself. And just to tell the group, I am going to probably do about 15 more minutes of addressing those fears to give you kind of an idea of how I solve those problems. And then I'm going to open up the floor to questions, because there are as many varieties of cooking, stovetop cooking versus baking, the whole 2 different worlds. In fact, they have 2 different culinary tracks for baking and pastry versus culinary. And as many people are in this meeting, there's going to be different challenges, different interests. And so I definitely want to go with where the group is. So let's start with cutting yourself. Fear of cutting yourself and burning yourself too is very real. If I can't see and I'm standing in front of a hot stove, or I'm near a sharp knife, and I don't know anything about how to use it, or how to use it safely, if I can't see what I'm doing, if your heart doesn't race, you're not going to last long because the fear is real. It's legitimate, but it can be overcome. So I'll start. One of our best sellers and one of the most important tools is called a cut glove. And it's a relatively thin, stretchy glove with 4 fingers and a thumb. And you put it on the hand of the food that is holding the food, because in theory, the hand holding the knife is safe. You've got 3 fingers under the handle. You're pinching the spine of it near the base. That hand should be safe unless something really wonky happens. But it's the hand holding the food that's in trouble. So let's say I am cutting a carrot, and I'm carefully putting the knife down. I'm slicing, and all of a sudden I feel pressure on the hand that's holding the food that I don't expect to feel. I'm just going to stop. The knife did not go through the glove. it can't. That's part of the thing. It's a level 5. It's used in many commercial kitchens. Insurance companies require it of the cooks in a lot of commercial kitchens. But if I had not been wearing that glove, by the time my brain would have got the information that that knife blade had come in contact with my skin, I'd already be cut. It happens that fast. So what this gives me is an extra layer of protection. And the other thing is where I would absolutely always, so I've got pretty good knife skills. You know, they really pound that into your head in culinary school where I feel comfortable cutting often without that. But that's hours and hours and hours. Most of us don't have it. I certainly didn't have it before I went to culinary school and was required to have it. Is grating cheese or potatoes or carrots. I don't know of any cook, cited or not, that has not left their knuckle skin in a thing of carrots or a thing of cheese. Box graters are wonderful. They're excellent tools, but they're weird. They're slanted sides. They're shaped, 4 sides. Each side has a different number and type of blade, and it's extremely hard to judge when your knuckles are too close that you need to stop. If you're wearing the cut glove, now this time I'm holding it, well, again, I have it on the hand that's holding the food. And if I'm going down, I'm grating, and all of a sudden I feel a snag or contact with the box grater. Again, I'm just going to stop. My skin will be safely beneath that glove, and I'll be able to, and I won't have been hurt. It just gives me that extra second, that extra layer to not hurt myself. So that's a cut glove, and it's a wonderful thing. So let's talk about heat for a second here. So heat, I'll talk about two tools, and also know that in the Blind Kitchen, we don't just sell tools. That's our bread and butter. But the heart of the Blind Kitchen are the strategies and information. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to tell you tonight won't be associated with the sale. It's just information and techniques that I've learned on my culinary journey and presentations and working with people that I can say to someone, hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to put that in the Blind Kitchen, and I might write a blog post on it. I might make a video on it. But that is how a lot of what the Blind Kitchen is. It's probably about 1/3 tools and 2/3 information, videos, and strategies. So in terms of heat, we have a tool. It's called a heat glove. And on the market, like in the 80s, there was a tool that came out called the UV glove. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a glove, a set of gloves that you get so you can pick up it's basically a hot pad, sort of, but way better and way more adaptive for us. So traditional hot pads that are quilted, or mitts where you've got 4 fingers in one cavity and a thumb in the other, or they might be a square or an oval. They are 5, 6, 7 layers of cotton quilted together. Excellent protection against heat, but they don't give you much tactile information. And they don't allow you to change. Once you've committed to where you're holding that pan, pulling it in and out of the oven or whatever, you're kind of stuck with where you're at, and hopefully you got it right. With the heat gloves, they have 4 fingers and a thumb, and they only have 2 layers of cotton, and that's not enough to protect your hands against the heat on their own. But what they do have are silicone designs all over the front and the back of each glove. So first of all, they're ambidextrous. It doesn't matter which hand you put them on. You just grab it. You need to know where the thumb is and put that in the right place. But otherwise, they're ambidextrous. And the silicone, of course, we can make cookies and biscuits and stuff in silicone in an oven. So they're very heat resistant. But they also provide non-skid protection. So if your pan is clean and not covered with grease, they're going to help you hold on to that pan better just because of their properties, because they're silicone. And so that also now, if I'm holding a pan, I can spread my fingers really wide or just maybe my pinky down that'll make it the weight bearing feel more comfortable. They're really, really cool. And then there's another tool I'd like to tell people about because I understand in this group there are going to be people with all kinds of different levels of vision. And I'm a big fan of using what vision you have. So the next thing is called oven rack guards. And they are about 14 inches long and they're tubes. And the tube is about as round in diameter as your index finger, but it's 14 inches long. On the back of the tube, it is cut completely all the way down. It's sliced, but the tube still holds its shape despite that slice. And then that slice is cut a little bit all the way down, so it forms like about hundreds of little fingers on each side of it. And what it does, it's going to protect your skin against burns. Because if you touch steel of the oven rack in your oven, you're going to get a far more severe burn than if you touch these oven rack guards. So first of all, unless if someone wants to learn more about it, definitely ask about it in the question and answers. But I am only going to put my fingertips over the front of the oven rack and pull the oven rack out. Instead of me putting my hands into the oven to grab the food, I'm going to pull the food out to me as best as I can. Put it on the stovetop. Now this is taking more time, which makes me a slower cook. I am a slower cook. That's where I lost the points in culinary school. But you then push the oven rack back in and you close the door and your skin has come in nowhere in contact. But a lot of people still do use their vision and they don't want to wait, use that time to pull out the rack. So you put those racks on the front of your oven rack. And they're very brightly colored. I don't know if they're red or orange. I don't have color anymore. I've got very, very little vision at all. But I know they're brightly colored. And so if you can see, instead of looking into a dark oven, with a dark oven rack, a dark oven floor, these pop out that you can actually know where the position of your oven racks are if you do have enough residual vision. So that's another nice thing about heat. So now I'm going to talk about the third fear of embarrassment. And the fear of being a messy, disorganized, you're going to knock things over, you're not going to know where things are at, it is a real fear, but there are ways around presenting in that manner where you can be a much more elegant cook. So the one tool I use every day when I'm cooking in so many ways in my kitchen is called a work tray. And basically, it's a standard cafeteria tray, one that you'd get in the hospital, in schools, in prisons. They're virtually indestructible. And they're just a tray that's a plastic tray. But they have so many uses for us. So, for example, I use mine as a cutting board, and that can be a little bit controversial, but I've never cut through one. And when I taught at the Oregon Commission for the Blind, I taught meal prep to legally blind adults. If I'm cutting that carrot we talked about, remember the one where I might have cut my finger, but I didn't because I'm wearing a cut glove. If I'm using a wooden cutting board that has no edges around the side. I mean, it's just, a square, and that's what I used to use when I was able to see. I wasn't diagnosed till I was 28, by the way, although there were signs of vision loss when I was 17. That kind of got looked over by accident by my parents because there were so many of us. It happens. So if I'm cutting that proverbial carrot on a wooden cutting board with no edges, if one of them rolls away, it's going to roll down, across the floor. It'll be under the refrigerator or something. I will have no idea. It'll be lost to me. But if I'm cutting that same carrot on these work trays, the sides are going to help to rein any rollaways in. Same thing if I'm cutting some type of a herb or other thing. And I've also got more strategies for doing herbs. But the other place those come in, so one is for a cutting board, another is for organizing. So if I'm making cookies, there is nothing worse than if I've got my butter softened, I've got everything going. Now I go into the refrigerator to get 2 eggs. Eggs are gone. Nobody told me, but now that's just going to take the wind out of my sails. I can't jump in the car and go to the store and get them. It's going to be a project. So I, within reason, gather the vanilla, the baking powder, the baking soda, the chocolate chips, the eggs, the butter, the ingredients I'm going to need to do that recipe, and I can put them on a work tray and set it to the side of the one that's in front of me where I'm working. So now I know I have all of those available, and now I've got the work tray in front of me. So if I'm measuring the vanilla, and we can talk about measuring wet ingredients because that can be very challenging with vision loss, I know I've got all those things, and if I accidentally spill, it's going to be trapped by that work tray, and I might even be able to recover that very expensive vanilla because they don't give that stuff away anymore. So let's say I've got all my ingredients together. I've done the dry ingredients, wet ingredients. I've mixed them together. I'm ready to scoop, use my portion scoop to put them on a baking sheet. And I'm going to double check that tray one last time just to make sure. And whoops, the vanilla is still there. I forgot to put it in. That gives me a second chance. People that have enough vision, they could just glance over and they say, whoops, we better grab that bottle. But for me, I need to have a predictable place where I'm going to be able to find all the ingredients that are supposed to be in there. And because I'm putting them away as I go, that's another way to not appear messy. I am going to have that second chance to make sure all the ingredients are in there. And so that's another reason for the work trays. Let's go back to the cutting board scenario though. So let's say I'm seasoning or fabricating chicken, or maybe doing something with eggs where if they are at room temperature for any length of time, they can grow bacteria, harmful bacteria that can make people sick pretty quickly. So let's say I'm seasoning my chicken, I've already got fabricated whatever, and it is on that work tray in front of me. Now I can take that work tray and maybe take it to a different counter. Or if I have a small kitchen, I can put it on my dining room table. And now I'm not going to accidentally put a cloth on it and not know it, or a utensil on it and not know that it's come in contact with it. I've moved that potentially harmful stuff away. So now I don't have to stop what I'm doing, but I can continue to cook. So it helps to corral ingredients that you want to be sure to keep track of. And that brings me to another one. And this is another thing I do every time when I cook dinner. I run a couple of inches of hot soapy water in a sink. And the reason for that is this. Let's say I'm working with that chicken, and now my fingers have chicken juice on them. And if I have to touch the counter to find where my sink is, touch the faucet to make sure it's not facing towards the back. We've all run it over the back without meaning to. Touching the water controls to turn the water on, and maybe pumping the soap dispenser or grabbing the bottle of dishwasher soap, and now you can wash your hands. But now I've got to go back through and uncontaminated all those places I touched, and that takes time, and time is valuable when you are cooking with vision loss. So, but now I have that sink of soapy water, so I can just use the backs of my hands, assuming they don't have anything messy on them, or maybe even my forearms, and find my way to that sink and plunge them into the soapy water. Now I'm home free. I can turn on the controls. I can do what I need to do, and I don't have to take time. And the reason I only run a couple of inches of soapy water is because that's going to cool over time while you're cooking, whether you're sighted or not. And if you're slower, it's going to be there longer. All I have to do is turn on the water control, make sure the water's hot again, put it in there, run a couple more inches. The temperature's going to come back up. It's going to revive the suds, and I'm going to be on my way again to be able to use that. And also, that starts my cleanup. If I'm using a measuring cup or spoon or something, I can just put it in that sink of soapy water, and I've started my cleanup. So that's a really good tip. So that has to do with the fear of, you can see how it addresses the fear of looking messy, disorganized, unclean. There are strategies around that. Now, the fear of making your family and friends sick is real. Most recipes call for and say, cook the chicken until the juices run clear, or cook it until it's no longer pink in the middle. Not all of us have access visually to that information. So the tool we have in the Blind Kitchen, and we're not the only ones that have them, they're out there, it's called a talking thermometer. And what it does is you take you open it up, you take it's an instant read, so you don't have to wait. There's some that beep, 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 and it takes a while. This will read it instantly, and you put it in the thickest part of the meat, closest to the bone, because that's going to be the last part to cook. And then you just press one button, and it'll read to you in a loud, clear voice, whether you're doing Celsius or Fahrenheit. There's a switch to let you toggle. But it's so much safer for us, because even if you have some vision and you needing to get your eyes very close to that digital display, it does have a large digital display on it, but now your eyes are near that food. Your nose is near it. Your hair is near the food. Your mouth is near the food. It's very unclean. Plus, it's pretty undignified to be hunched over, trying to use vision strain, which is exhausting. I did it for years, trust me. That's exhausting, when it'd be better just to be able to stand tall, put it in, know that you've gotten the right place, and I can explain how you do that if that's of interest to people. And you just push the button and you get the information. No more dangers of spattering or anything like that. So I have only told you about 3 or 4 tools in the Blind Kitchen, and there at this point are almost 100. And there are more strategies than that in there, such as the running the sink of soapy water before you start cooking, which would help even people with vision to make their lives easier. So I'd like to open the floor to questions if people are ready. And if I don't have the answer and someone in the group does, definitely speak up.
And this is Kimmy, and I just wanted to let everyone know you're currently muted when you entered the meeting, and the keyboard shortcuts to unmute would be Alt-A for Windows and Command-Shift-A for Mac.
Deborah, this is Bob in Santa Barbara.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. This is absolutely wonderful. I'm a novice cook, but my one question to you is, with the cut gloves, can that use be transferred to gardening to protect me from thorny plants?
Okay. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point. So they are made of polyethylene, and that is a weave. So they're made of, so the threads can be split. So if you have like a thorn, it won't cut the glove, but it can cause the threads to separate,
Ooh,
and you can get poked. So
ouch.
that would not be, the other place would be like that. Most of us don't put the tip of a knife in our hand, but the tip of a knife could get past those threads, not cut through them, but separate the threads.
Separate the threads. Okay.
So that's a good question. And we're going to get you cooking, Bob.
Do you recommend another kind of glove for garden use to protect me from poking my hands with thorns?
I do not, I'm not a gardener, so I do not know. I would recommend you go to like a gardening store. I'm sure they're there. You aren't the
Okay.
first one or the only one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for the question.
I see Daryl Adams with his hand raised. Do you want to go ahead, Daryl?
Sure. Thanks, Deborah. I'm actually Daryl. I'm up in Portland, in your neck of the woods.
Oh, hi, neighbor.
Hi. I just actually I had a question about when you're using the trays as a cutting board. How does that work in terms of the knife and the dulling of a knife? Is that something to be concerned with, not coming down on wood?
It's a reasonable question, and it's kind of like, do you put your wooden spoons in the dishwasher or not? There are, it's civil wars around it. So wood is porous, so also the cleanliness of it. And am I cutting plastic off of that? I've never had a knife go through it. Um, to eat both surfaces do dull your knives. There's no doubt about it, but then you just sharpen them. That's part of it. So I don't think there's a disadvantage to using wood, except that it doesn't have those walls to help contain what you're cutting.
Fantastic, thank you.
You're
I think
welcome.
maybe a quick follow-up would be on you did mention about your using how you place the thermometer in the meat in terms of knowing whether or not you're in the right location. That would be interesting to understand better.
Oh, thank you for asking. So this is also has to do with air fryers. That same cut glove we're talking about is not meant to protect you against heat. It's absolutely not. But it does. It's better than touching something. It's going to at least be a layer of protection. You can't hold it on it for a hot food or in a hot air fryer, and I'll explain that in a minute. But it's going to be better than touching it with your bare skin. It'll give you an extra second or two as you're exploring. So if I have this big 14-pound turkey and I need to know where the thickest part of the meat is in the bone, I could just do a random stab. I hope I'm right. I hope I'm right. But if I'm wearing that cut glove, now I can touch the top of that hot turkey. I can't do it with my bare hands. If I were to touch that turkey and try to find, even for a second, the oil from the turkey or the moisture is going to come back with my finger and it's going to continue to burn me.
Mhm.
But if I'm wearing that glove, it's going to be on the glove and I can just touch it for a second and then pull my hand back and let it cool and then touch it for a second. And so it's not perfect, but it's a much more educated guess that I am near where the thickest part of the meat is and closest to the bone. So um, it's a better guess. And for air fryers, a lot of air fryers have where you have to flip the food halfway through it, and they're small baskets, and your knuckles hit the side of it, even if you can see. Wear that cut glove. You're going to have an extra second when you feel pressure against your hand while you're reaching in there. You can pull it away, and it'll help protect it from getting burnt. So they are not meant for heat protection, but they do work better than your skin.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we have Marsha Lee Harris has her hand up.
Okay, am I unmuted? Okay. Hi, I remember you from a long time ago and you introduced something that I've been trying to find, but I don't want plastic. And because when you're boiling with plastic, it's causing particles to get in your body and things of plastic. So I'm looking for the thing that goes in a pot that when you're boiling, like if I'm going to boil water to be for a soft-boiled egg or something, that makes that rattle, rattle, rattle sound when
I
it's
know
boiling.
exactly what you're talking about.
And
So
you
what
were the one that told me about it years ago, so I thought I was going to ask you that question. But if you only want me to ask only about the four things you talked about, I can figure out another way to
No,
get.
that's a great one. I think it's a helpful thing to bring up for people because I used mine tonight. I absolutely love it. So what it's called, it's a boil alert disc, and it's a little ceramic disc that
Yeah, that's
is
what I want.
heat resistant. It's about an inch and a half around and about a quarter of an inch tall. So it's just a disc. One side of it, like a big coin, one side of it is smooth and the other side is textured. And it was not made for blind or visually impaired people. It was made to stop boil over in a pan. So if you're cooking anything starchy like potatoes or pasta, you know what happens when the bubbles start to form and the starch is in the water as it's cooking and they start climbing up and down, up over each other. And then it goes over the edges of the pot and it makes a mess and it's a terrible sound. That's what it was made to do. It was made to stop the normal formation of bubbles. Side effect, it rattles. When it's so where the bubbles are going to start to form, because of science, water hits 212 degrees, bubbles form, they rise through the water or the liquid, and then disappear as steam. That's the way it works. And so the first bubbles that are going to form in any pan that you have are going to be in the center bottom, because first of all, it's in touch as close to the heat source as you're.
What happened?
Deborah, I think you somehow muted yourself.
She disappeared from the thing. According to my meta glasses, she left everything.
I did mute myself. I was
Okay.
tired of hearing myself. No, just kidding.
I'm
So-
not tired of it.
Thank you. I'm actually having fun. So how far did I get before I muted myself?
You talked about how you what they were designed for originally, and then you said something. I went to hear it again, and it was gone.
Okay,
You got
so
the rattle part, but then that was it.
okay. So when the bubbles form, and they're going to be necessarily in that bottom center of your pan, that's where they're going to start. You put the textured side facing down. So that'll allow those bubbles to start to form, but they can't come through the disc. But when they come up, they lift it. They have to go around it, and they do. And they lift it a little bit. So that's what produces the rattle. Bubble comes up, the faster and harder the water is boiling, the more and more you're going to hear that rattle. Fast, 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 fast. If you just want a gentle simmer, like if you're poaching an egg or maybe poaching fish or a pear where you just want it to be gentle, but you want to still know that the water is simmering, you can go click, 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 and you're controlling it with your ears and with the temperature knob instead of because blind people have been able to manage boiling water for years. The pot can move, you can monitor the steam, keeping your hands safely above the top of the pan. But what I love about it is it allows me to not be over the top of the pan. I can be away from it, 10 feet away, and I can hear what's happening in the pan or what's not happening in the pan. And then I can correct it. So that's called the boil alert disc. And that is one of my favorite things too. It's really something.
And it's not plastic.
No, it is not. It's made of food grade ceramic. I have a person pottery. Yeah, it's pottery.
Perfect. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I have a follow-up question on that. So let's say you're doing spaghetti or potatoes and you go to drain that. So then how do you find that boil alert item without burning yourself as you
Good.
drain the spaghetti or the potatoes into a strainer?
Yeah. So I've got two answers for that. Number one is you just dump it with the noodles and stuff and wait till it's cool enough to touch. Just dump it in with it. It's not going to hurt anything. It's already been in with your noodles or your potatoes. But there's another tool. So that's the answer to that one. And it's going to be very hot at first, but eventually your noodles, potatoes, everything cools down, especially if you're a noodle rinser, like some people are. But there is another tool in the blind kitchen that is ingenious, and it wasn't made for blind people. Once again, so many of these tools were not, but they're helpful to us. And it's called a locking lid pan. And it is a pan that has handles that on the side of it that are round. We used to call it the Mickey Mouse pan at work because it's got round mouse ears on it. But you literally take the lid that comes with the pan and you turn those handles. They're specially designed. If you get one in your hand, you'll understand what I'm saying. And I can literally then grab the pan by the lid handle, which is not the two, the pan handles. The lid handle is different. It's running across the center of the top, and lift it and shake it very hard, and it's going to stick there. It's never going to come off. The lid of the design of the lid has straining holes in it, and you can choose to make it a steaming environment where no steam can escape, or you can make it a draining environment like what you're talking about. So if I have my boil alert disc in the bottom, I I'm not cooking it with the lid on it because I need to check and see if the pasta is al dente or are the potatoes fork tender. And once I get to the point where I said, okay, it's now time for me to strain it, I'm going to lock that lid on. And so if I was doing it the old-fashioned way, where I'm pouring, dumping the pasta or potatoes into a strainer, it's an educated guess at best if you can't see, because I've always said if I was going to have vision loss, I should have been given an extra hand because I never have enough hands. And so if I'm holding that heavy pan of water and food and carrying it over to the sink, and I've got the strainer in there, hopefully I'll be able to dump it in there and it'll all land in the strainer, but that's an educated guess. With the locking lid pan, I now have my hands on the handles, and these can go in the oven, by the way, too. So the handles handle heat, and I can carry it over to the stove and then just tip it over away from me, and the water or liquid will drain out, and the food will remain in it, and I am not even touching the lid. The lid is locked onto it. It's absolutely ingenious. So, and of course, the boiler disc is in there as well. But then I get done with it. I take it back probably onto the stove. I take the lid off, and then I'm going to deal with the food, and I'll figure out a way to get rid of the pot sticker. Maybe I'll use the heat gloves, just reach in and find where it's at because it's very hard. I'll be able to locate it. Or maybe I'll wait for them to cool down a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you have choices at that point.
Sherry and Adam have their hand raised.
Hi, Deborah. Great presentation. I have a question about making pancakes. So you pour the batter into the pan and you're cooking. And normally, I used to have vision, and normally I'd wait for the bubbles to come up so I know it'd be time to flip the pancake. What's a tip or trick for that?
Good question. All about timing when you can't see. All about timing. So, and the other thing, liquid foods such as eggs, pancakes, you pour that liquid onto the griddle or into the pan, it's going to go wherever the heck it wants. And it's going to be unpredictable for you unless you have a tool to help you manage that. And we have something called an egg ring. And it's a silicone 3-inch circle. And it's about 3 inches in a circle, and it's about a half an inch high. And it has a little handle on it that sticks up into the ceiling about 2 inches. Again, this tool was not made for us, but it's so valuable. So if I'm making pancakes, I'm going to butter the pan. I'm going to butter grease the silicone. And then for the particular egg ring that we have, it's 1/4 cup of pancake batter. And I am going to take a level cup of pancake batter. And because of that 2-inch handle that's sticking up in the air, I don't even need heat gloves to be able to do this. I can just grab that handle. And I'm very thoughtful when I put it in the pan. I put the handle of the egg ring near the handle of the pan. So I know about where it is when I go to do it without even getting close to the heat. I look for the outside pan handle, and then I know it's about 1 inch in. And then I can touch that handle, and I can actually touch the top of the ring, even if the pan is on and hot. That half an inch keeps you far enough away from the action in the pan to not get burned. And I have a video online if you want to see how to cook an egg with vision loss. I do it live in real time and talk you through it. Like, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing now. So with the pancakes, I'm going to pour those in. And then I'm going to put that off to the side on my work tray. So if there's any dribbles, I'm all covered. And then you might cook it for 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. It depends on what kind of pan you're using, how high your heat is. You'll have to figure out what works for you. And not only does it keep it into a predictable, attractive shape, that's one of those fears of presentation. How can I serve eggs to my family or pancakes if I can't see? This is one way that everyone's going to get a consistent presentation, a consistent stack of pancakes. And then when I go to turn it, so let's say I do it for like 3.5 minutes, and then I'm gonna pick up. I'm gonna leave the ring on it until I can get a thin spatula underneath it. And once I am sure, I can lift up a little bit. Oh, nope, it didn't all come up. But then I'll readjust it because it's still being held by the ring, and you get better with practice, just like anything. And now I know for sure, I'm confident that the pancake is on there. I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to take that egg ring, set it to the side, and I'm holding the spatula in about the same place. So here's again an educated guess. I can't see where I'm going to put it in the pan. But if I do a 180 and I haven't moved very far, I have a 90% chance it's going to drop right back down. And then you may say, oh, I need to cook it for 2 minutes on the other side. So it's a game of, but it's timing is what's going to tell you. And you can have somebody like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ira or Be My Eyes, be looking at it, and you can say to them, okay, I want you to look at what's going on here. Tell me when the bubbles start coming, and you have a timer going. So you say, oh, at 3 minutes and 40 seconds, when my stove is set at this setting, that's when they start to form. And so then the next time you don't need Ira and you don't need Be My Eyes. You already know what works for you in your kitchen with the pan you're using. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lori Myers has her hand up.
Yeah, hi. This is Lori and Mike Myers. And first of all, I want to thank Deborah. This is like so amazing. We really appreciate all of your feedback
Oh, you're
and
welcome.
all your tips. That's wonderful. I have two questions. One of them, do you have any hands-on classes? And how do we purchase all this equipment?
Okay, so I do workshops and things in different states, so I am available to do that. I certainly can do that. I tend to do it mostly for young adults, the children or young adults between 13 and 21. So it's possible. You can write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com. But your other question was where? Oh, we're online, and it's theblindkitchen.com. And so I want to explain one more thing about all of the stuff I've been talking about. Let's say we're talking about the egg ring. If you are listening, you said, oh, I know she had something about eggs or pancakes, I don't remember. And you go on the website. First of all, it's going to tell you what the tool, we have audio described videos. They tell you what the tool is, what it does, why it's blind friendly, and how to use and care for it. I don't sell just spatulas. Everything on the Blind Kitchen is catered towards cooking with vision loss. The other thing is every tool comes in its own resealable container that's labeled both in large print and braille with the name of it. So if you get the auto measure spout or whatever that you, or the boil alert disc that we talked about earlier, you say, I can't remember exactly what she said about that. You can then go to the website, which is very screen reader friendly and magnifier friendly. We don't do pop-up ads. I don't sell for Amazon. I don't have those links. The website is as clean as we can possibly make it so that you are able to navigate it regardless of your level of vision, if you're familiar with using your own computer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Tammy Habrose has her hand up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for doing this. The tips are great. I'm wondering if you have found anything or if you have any suggestions on placement of the pots and pans on a flat top stove where you can't see the rings or where the burners are.
That was my question too.
Okay. That's a very common question. In fact, if you go to the website, there is a whole video on it that's like 20 minutes, but it's how to know if your pan is centered on a stove. And you're right, the glass top stoves are the most difficult because you don't have tactile information once you turn that on. But what I'm about to say to you, it applies for any stove, whether you're using gas or an electric coil stove. The one it applies to least is if you're using an induction burner, but that's a whole nother story. But they're very blind friendly, but they don't give those away, that's for sure. So the secret to this, in short, is if you have a pan on your stove, first of all, you got to make sure that the pan is big enough to cover the heat source, that you have the right burner, because you don't want any heat climbing up the side of the pan. So let's say I know I've got the right size pan and I know I'm on the right burner. And so now I'm going to center it as best I can and turn it on. I'll hover with my hand above it and I'm going to set it down, but I don't know. I can't see if it's on that. Here's how you're going to know. The principle is that you can tap the top of a very hot pan for just a second. If the rim is clean, and I'm talking about the rim, and you tap just the top of it just for a second, you can't hold it there, but it's going to cool immediately when you pull it away from the pan. And so that's the principle that's going to help you know if it's centered. You can't touch hot water for even a second because the water's going to come back with your finger, or hot food for just a second. The food's going to come back with your finger and continue to burn you. But the metal of the stove, of the rim of the pan, is not going to come back with your finger. So it's absolutely doable. I don't have leather fingers, and that's where I spend most of my time in front of my stove when I'm cooking, is touching the top of that pan. So here's the principle. If you are over the heat source and it's centered, when you touch at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, it's going to be equally hot on when your fingertip touches those different locations. But let's say I accidentally am stirring it and I don't realize that I've nudged the pan, forward a little bit.
Oh, Deborah, you muted yourself again.
Okay, now it's unmuted. Yep. So here we go. So now I'm touching the top of my pan and it's equally hot all across, and so that's okay. But let's say I accidentally move it and I've moved it to where I'm now touching the top of the pan, and 2 o'clock feels good, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, all feels good, but 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, it's much hotter. What that tells me is it's no longer centered underneath the pan, but there is heat climbing the side of the pan at 10 or 11 o'clock. So I know I'm off center because it's not equally hot all the way around, and I'm just going to gently nudge it. I might overcorrect. If I overcorrect, then it's going to be hot at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and then I'm going to readjust it. But let's say I nudge it a little bit towards 10 o'clock and I'm touching, give it a minute or so, and it's still too hot at 10 or 11 o'clock. I'm going to nudge it a little bit again. And once I get it under control, I will know that it'll be evenly hot all the way around. And that's how you know that your pan is centered, if that top rim is equally hot all the way around.
Interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Craig Nader? Well, Deborah, there's also a question in the chat about someone wants to know how long can a cut glove be washed?
Oh, good
Or how
question.
long do they last?
I should have said that about both the gloves. So the cut glove can be washed many, many times. And you can another tip is have a kitchen laundry basket. So let's say I'm using that cut glove to find that turkey, to find where the best place to temp it is. Now I can't it's dirty, and especially if the turkey isn't hot enough, now I've got to get rid of that glove. And instead of having to run it to a laundry room, I can just put it in my kitchen laundry. Same thing goes for the heat gloves. If you accidentally touch food when you don't expect to, and now it's a little bit messy, you can just throw it in there. We use these at the Oregon Commission for the Blind. And we had 3 meal prep instructors, and we each had 2 or 3 or 4 students a day, depending on the day. And we watched them many, many, many times and ran them through the dryer. So they do eventually get stretchy, just like your t-shirt will, or a cotton t-shirt. The threads will start to get stretchy, and you can tell that they're worn, and you just need to throw them out, but they're not at all expensive. Same thing goes the other way you can wash those that'll give them a longer life is that you can actually put it on your hand and then wash it while you're wearing it as though you were washing your hands. Put soap on it, just wash it, rinse it, put it in your dish basket, and then it won't have the wear and tear of the heat and the washer and stuff like that. So that's another way to do it. We just had such volume that was not practical for all of our students, especially if people are using 2 or 3 in the course of their lesson. The heat gloves are the same way. They're made of cotton, so just like your t-shirt, it is going to eventually get stretchy and worn. That you can wash and dry them a lot of times, but just like anything, yeah, they will eventually get stretchy and worn out, but they do last a very long time.
So this is Craig.
Is anyone able to hear me?
Sorry, Craig, are you ready for your question?
Yes, 2 things. So when you were touching the pan to be sure about the temperatures at the different clocks, were you using cut gloves or just your regular hands?
Just my fingertip.
Okay.
And I'm careful to do it. So the one thing you want to be real careful to do, and I'm acting like I'm doing this all with one hand, but steam can be coming up while you're doing this checking, and you don't want to reach over the pan with your bare wrist. So you touch a couple with your left hand, touch a little bit with your right hand. So yeah, you don't, I don't wear gloves when I'm doing that. And in fact, I think that would be way less effective because I'd get less information.
Okay, so the question was a little bit about my daughter is blind but she's interested in learning how to cook, but she is afraid of the stove. What is the suggestions to start dealing with that?
Yeah, good question. She's right to be afraid of the stove. It's dangerous and it's scary and all that. I would start her out probably on an induction burner. They're only like $50, and it's only so an induction burner is they come in different sizes and shapes, but they are basically a heating element that you have to use the right kind of pan, a pan that has that reacts to magnets, because that's how it works. There's no flame, there's no anything. What happens is magnets, I don't understand it, kick in, and the only place on that platform that gets hot is where the pan is in contact with it. There's a little bit of radiant heat around the edges of it, of course, but if you have like a 16 by 16 induction burner, and you have, let's say, a saucepan that's 4 inches around, only the part of that platform that's going to get hot is where that pan is in contact with it. They're extremely blind friendly. That might be a good way to introduce her into it, to let her feel safe, and then gradually move her to the other ones. But that's a way you could teach her about, you can touch the top of a pan, because it's scary to do that over heat or flames.
Okay, that's great. Great advice. Do you have videos on all the items? I saw that you have for each item a little video. Do you do more introductions in your website?
Introductions to
yeah, to different techniques for cooking and things like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So the Blind Kitchen Library has 12 categories, and it has different methods of cooking. It's about how to access and read recipes if you can't read anymore and large print isn't working. It has ways of labeling things in your kitchen and pantry, organizing your kitchen and pantry, cleaning, um, dining out, shopping. There's 12 categories of things, and a lot of that is, like I said, is just information only that just help make things easier if you're trying to manage a kitchen and pantry with vision loss.
Mhm. And just to finish out, is there a suggestion when a kitchen is being shared by people that see and don't see? Is there a better? Is it best to put things for the blind person in a more logical way in the kitchen, or just mix it up with everything else, or what do you suggest?
You know, it's whatever works for your family, but there are a couple of things that you can do. One is, if it depends on how large your kitchen is and how much space you have, but you could actually dedicate a space to your daughter. Maybe she gets this one thin cupboard where she puts the stuff she uses the most, and no one else is allowed to touch it. That she'll know where it is. But there are other ways of labeling and doing things like that. So look on the website. There are probably 12 right answers, but organizing things is super important. I want to put another tip out here. For my husband can see and I can't, and we have an agreement. If the knife is not in his hand or my hand and it's not put away clean in the drawer with its sheath on it, it's going to be in one of two places in our kitchen, and we call them sharps baskets, and you can use whatever you have, but ours are basically elongated pencil organizers, like you put in a drawer. And so if the knife is not in his hand or mine, it's going to be above my work tray at my workspace, a peeler, a mini box grater, scissors, anything I could potentially cut my hands on. It's going to be there, not laying on a counter, not laying in a sink. And we send two when we send them out, because there's one you can put also behind your sink or somewhere near your sink. So let's say I'm doing that chicken, I'm cutting it up, I'm all done with it. I really don't want to take time to clean the knife right now, and nor do I want to put it back with my other peeler and things I'm going to be using later. So I can just put it behind the sink in that sharps basket, where I know whenever I get near that, I'm going to be real careful, because chances are there is something sharp in there. So that's an example of one strategy where you can have, both seeing and people that can't see, and helping to keep people safe. And you can always write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com, and I would be happy to share other things. If you're unable to find it on the website, maybe I could guide you give you a link to where that information is, because we all use different terms to name things. So sharps basket might not occur to you, but things like how am I going to keep my daughter's hands safe if there's knives around?
Well, the seminar came as a blessing to us because my daughter just graduated from Cal State Fullerton in linguistics, and we're having a hard time for her to actually be able to live more independently. And living on her own means cooking a little bit for herself. And she's all eager beaver, but as I said, we're very afraid, and we're really happy that this meeting was put together so that and be in touch with you. So I'm sure we will be bothering you. My daughter's name
You
is Carolina, and trust me, we could use some help. But our goal is in 1 year from now, she has to be a master chef.
Well, I am very proud of your daughter. Congratulations. That's not an easy route she took, but there are other pieces of equipment I could guide you towards, like that I don't sell, but like rice cookers. Those
Absolutely.
are amazing I use it all the time, because you set it and it's done. It's going to switch to warm after it's done cooking. And I love the smell of it while I'm cooking. So there are some tools out there that are really lend themselves to being safe and for us. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. I'll
You're
stop
welcome.
plugging the items. Thank you.
Mhm.
Kimmy, do we need to start wrapping up?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask her to briefly touch on liquid measurement.
Okay, so liquid measurement so I've got one liquid measurement for you. This will go really quickly. It's called the auto measure spout, and it dispenses exactly 1 tablespoon of liquid into your pan or your bowl, such as olive oil or vinegar, whatever you pour liquid ingredients. You hold it upside down, you put the spout on the bottle, hold the bottle upside down. It dispenses 1 tablespoon and then stops automatically, even if you're still holding it upside down. It is a game changer because I can then touch the pan or the dish I want, reach over, grab the bottle I want, and there's ways of labeling that I can go through if you want to write to me, and I can dispense just 1. If I want another tablespoon, I tip it over again. Game changer, big time. And that's called the auto measure spout. But in terms of measuring wet liquid, it's hard. The traditional ways. If you need, let's say, a teaspoon of vanilla, you're going to identify your spoon that is a teaspoon, and then you're going to pour a little bit of vanilla, and then you're going to check with your finger. And then you're going to pour a little bit more and check with your finger. And let's face it, there's no real way. The only way you're going to know it's level is when it starts to spill over, because otherwise it's probably not full all the way. So what we have in the Blind Kitchen, we have what we call dry measure cups and dry measure spoons, which are very much like the ones you probably have in your kitchen. They're made out of stainless steel, but what makes them very adaptive is they have dots that are part of the handle. They're not tactile paint, they're not bump dots, they are part of the stainless steel. And so if I count 4 dots on the handle, I know it's a 1/4 cup or a 1/4 teaspoon. If I count 2 dots, it's going to be a 1/2 cup or a 1/2 teaspoon. So that is a system. You don't need to know Braille, you just need to know how to count. But the wet measure ones, these are the ones that are special. So I need a teaspoon of vanilla, let's say. And so what we'll do is we'll send you a standard set of 4 measuring spoons. But instead of the handle being parallel to your counter, it faces the ceiling. It's turned upwards. So it much more resembles a soup ladle, which is how we efficiently transfer liquids in our society. You're not going to use a flat spoon to do 100 different spoons to get a bowl of soup. You're going to get a soup ladle and pick it up and pull it over, and it's going to effectively transfer liquid. So with the spoons, we send you a special size funnel and a small spouted pitcher. Most people, so the spouted pitcher is about 2 inches tall and about 1 inch around. Most people don't have one of those in their kitchen. You have bigger ones, but not those. And then the funnel. This is a smaller funnel, but it allows, and I'll explain how it works. So if I need that teaspoon of vanilla, I'm going to have my work tray there. I'm going, just in case something spills, but it's not gonna, because I've done this a million times. I'm going to put that little pitcher in front of me, that little 2 inch tall pitcher, and I'm going to take that spoon. I'm going to find the one that has 1 dot on it, so it's 1 teaspoon. I'm going to put it in there, and it's basically being held upright because that container is so small, the spoon can stand up. It can't fall down into it. So then I'm going to take the vanilla, I'm going to take the lid off, put the lid down careful to know for sure it is, and I'm going to pour the vanilla into that cup, and I'm going to purposely overflow the cavity of the spoon, not the plastic cup, but the cavity of the spoon, so that when I go to lift that, so now I'm going to put the vanilla bottle back down, put the lid on it, so now it's safe, and then I'm going to grab the spoon, because it's the handle sticking above the little pitcher, and I'm going to pull it straight up. And if I don't hear anything drop out, I know it's a level teaspoon of vanilla or a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, depending on what I used, because it was just under liquid. And if nothing's dropped out, I'm going to bring my target bowl really close to it and then dump it into there. And then I'm going to put that teaspoon into my sink of soapy water, get that cleanup started. But there's overflow in that little cup. So now I'm going to again take the lid off my vanilla bottle, and now I'm going to put that funnel inside the vanilla bottle. So instead of having, I'm talking about the little 2 ounce ones. So instead of having an opening about the size of my pinky for the bottle opening, I'm going to put that funnel in. And now I have more like a 3 inch opening and or target to put it in.
I need to go to sleep.
What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. So then I'm just going to dump the overflow into the vanilla bottle, put the little pitcher in the sink, put the little funnel in the sink, put the lid back on the vanilla bottle, and I know I have an accurate measurement without waste. So that's how, those are two ways of doing liquid measurements in the blind kitchen.
This is fabulous.
Thank
Well, thank you.
Really, really helpful.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and Deborah for taking time out tonight for this meeting. Shauna and Delaney, did you want to just wrap up with some last event?
Actually, I'm going to take that, Kimmy.
Great. Thank you, Sherry.
That's okay. Hi, so I'm Sherry Lawrence. I'm the
Vice President. No, oh, sorry.
Vice President of the chapter. I want to really thank you all for coming out tonight. We had a tremendous amount of participants. And Deborah, you were amazing. We learned so much. I'm sure all of us have many more questions, but I'm sure we'll be pounding your website either tonight or tomorrow. So thank you for that. I want to let you all know, especially those, of course, that are in the Los Angeles area, we've already got a couple events coming up. So April 26th, for those that are more local, we are doing a bowling event. We're going to host a bowling social, and that will be in Tarzana, and we'll start at 2 o'clock. And you'll be getting more information for sure about that one. And then in May, actually May 22nd, we're going back to a virtual event, and we're going to be really participating in what is Mental Health Month. And for our mental health speaker, we have 2 dynamic women. Just really excited. We have our first person, well, the topic, by the way, is prioritizing your mental health and well-being. I think a lot of us and a lot of you, we just don't do it often enough. But our first speaker will be Ann Wagner. You could Google her, but Ann has RP. And what's really cool is she presents nationally on grief, anxiety, depression, and most of all, resilience, all related to vision loss. So she's going to be doing a presentation that will be with her husband in order to talk about how it affects you, those that have visual impairment or are blind, as well as the family. And I think that's going to be really informative. And then the other half of that presentation is Sonia Chapnick. And Sonia actually just completed the LA Marathon. She's part of United in Stride, which is a running group that actually has guides that run with visually impaired and blind runners. And she does that for her health. But more importantly, she also has a little company or organization called Yoga Gently. And she is a certified yoga instructor, and she's a therapist as well. So what she does is she teaches yoga to visually impaired and blind people in order for them to understand that they can do anything that they put their mind to. And it's relaxation, it's raises your emotional effort in everything you're doing. We have been talking with her for quite some time now, and everything she does is accessible. So we're really hoping that some of you or all of you come out for those events. And especially in May, it is virtual. And again, that's going to be May 22nd. You'll be getting email blasts just like you did with this virtual event as well. So with that, our Los Angeles chapter thanks all of you so much for your support. We're going to be doing many more of these type of things all throughout the year. And Deborah, again, thank you so much. You were outstanding.
Well,
Yes, thank you so much, everyone.
thank you. Great group. Good questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're a fabulous presenter. Really, you explained everything in such an understandable way. And I could just picture what you were trying to describe. It was really enlightening, and I can't wait to get to the website.
Oh, I'm glad you found it helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and to everyone, we did record tonight's meeting, so the recording of this as well as the transcript will be posted on our YouTube channel, and I will send out an email to everyone who registered for this meeting so that you can find the recording hopefully by the end of this week. And just to wrap things up for tonight, I just want to give a little plug for Vision Walk because it is our Vision Walk season and we are celebrating 20 years of Vision Walk. And our West region will be hosting 3 Vision Walks this season. The Arizona Vision Walk on April 5th at Glendale Heroes Regional Park. The Orange County Vision Walk on May 17th at Miles Square Park in Fountain Valley. And our Bay Area Vision Walk on May 31st at Golden Gate Park Bandshell in San Francisco. So thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and conversation, and I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.